Hi guys. So I haven't had a chance to tell anyone. Let's have a look. I'm just wondering if we got the Ginger Alden interview. Let me have a look, guys. Arkansas. There we go.
That's
the one.
Couple weeks.
Right. Let's just pause it. Let me get you guys up. Let me just get the messages up. La ba da da da. So I've got a little while. The wife's gone out with the kids. I thought, oh, why not? Let's get back on the Elvis Presley fan on keto. Right, let me get your messages up. I think that's working. So I've got a little while. The wife's gone out with the... Right, okay. Okay. Hi, Stacey. I'm just going to let everyone know that we're live. It was a bit of a sudden live stream. I want to do a bit of Ginger Alden stuff. Okay. How is everyone? Aloha from the West Midlands. Hi, mate. You were on the other day, weren't you? Welcome back. Hi, Pamela. I'm just letting everyone know that we're live. It does take a little while. How is everyone? So what I could do while I'm messaging everyone, I'm going to start. I wanted to go through this Ginger Alden interview. So while I'm messaging everyone, I am gonna press play.
My sister, my brother, his wife,
a very recent interview.
It was quite treacherous, and we landed on this icy runway in Harrison, and we stayed at the Ramada Inn in Harrison, and Elvis made sure that...
So the volume is a bit low, so I'm going to just see if I can get it louder. Let's just press play. And then I'm going to message everyone whilst you guys...
We made it up the mountaintop, which wasn't easy because of all the ice, but so Elvis attended my...
Had news that her grandfather had passed away.
Yeah.
And I'll let her tell the story because to set it up, you know, obviously you were going to your grandfather's funeral, but
Yes.
Certainly after touring out in Vegas for...
Right.
You didn't expect Elvis, but he kind of surprised you. I'll let you tell that story.
And Elvis, I was with him on his New Year's Eve show, and I don't know if a lot of you saw that. It was a fantastic show. For me, it was always difficult because I was at all of Elvis's shows except for the 9 months that I was with him, and I thought he did phenomenal. And even when he pulled a hamstring muscle or whatever, he wanted to give the audience his best. But the New Year's Eve show was quite something, but if you had asked me, I just thought they were all so well done. It was hard to separate at the time. But yeah, it was, I think it was around New Year's Eve, my grandfather passed away, and I was very close to my grandfather. So we were coming off the tour, came back to Memphis, and I told Elvis I had to leave.
So this is a lovely story, guys. Keep listening.
Went to Graceland with him and had to leave. And it just amazed me because I was going to go to my grandfather's funeral. And he told me, because I'd really like to go with you. And we were just shocked. My parents were already in Harrison, Arkansas, and my grandfather lived, they lived in Mount Sherman in Jasper. And so, I mean, how many people would think that Elvis Presley is going to go to the funeral with you? I remember thinking we were going to drive there, and I was like, well, where do we put him? What do we do? You know, we had all these plans to, but I knew he had to be tired from the tour, and I remember just saying to him, you know, aren't you tired? And he said, no, I'd really like to be there. And that always holds a very special place in my heart because
So isn't that lovely, guys? Ginger Alden said this very cute little story. Elvis wants to go to her grandfather's funeral.
The weather was very bad in Harrison. It was very icy and snowy, and I remember Elvis was just determined to get my family there, so he offered his plane. And he ended up flying my sister, my brother, his wife, and it was quite treacherous. And we landed on this icy runway in Harrison, and we stayed at the Ramada Inn in Harrison. And Elvis made sure that we made it up the mountaintop, which wasn't easy because of all the ice. But so Elvis attended my grandfather's funeral, and that was about, I think it was maybe January 3rd, 1977. And that was quite something too. The church was a very small, I believe it was Assembly of God Church in Mount Sherman. And Elvis had a very close friend, Charlie Hodge, from his Army days, and Charlie was with us. And the church was a very small, maybe 6 little pews on each side, and Elvis walks in, and there was other family people that knew, they knew he was coming. And everyone was my relatives, they were very polite to him. And I remember the minister got up and started to sing, and he was quite nervous. He knew Elvis is sitting looking at him, and I'll never forget, Elvis looks up at him and just goes like this and nods and starts slowly singing along with him. And Charlie Hodge did too in harmony, and you could just see the difference, the change in this minister. And
He got the approval.
He got the approval. And
I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing, guys?
yeah, and so it was just an amazing thing for someone. It shows what a good-hearted person he was, that he took time to do that.
Ron, if you don't mind, can you show that other picture that we have? So this is a photo from that day, correct?
Yeah, that was at the cemetery on Mount Sherman. And
So, you know, some of the these people that are saying that Elvis was just suicidal and was at the end of his tether and didn't want to go on no more. Then you listen to this story, and it completely trashes what these people are saying. Elvis was looking forward to the future. Elvis was looking forward to his up-and-coming tour. Yes, he had a horrific year. Obviously, the book Elvis, What Happened was all part of it, yeah? That upset him so much. But Elvis was looking forward to the future, guys. He had recently got engaged. We don't really know if he ever intended to get married. But Elvis wasn't depressed, crying in bed in a ball, waiting for life to end, and as David Stanley says, committed suicide, planned his own suicide. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to think that. Let's listen to Ginger. Now, Ginger Alden has a very optimistic opinion of Elvis, that towards the end he was still happy. Still happy. And that when you think about the fact that Elvis played racquetball on his last night and he was on the piano, singing songs, it doesn't ring true with the other version of events that say that he was suicidal and that he didn't want to be here. It makes much more sense that Elvis was looking forward to the future. There's no way that Elvis would commit suicide, but he loved Lisa Marie way too much. So last night we were joined by an Elvis fan called Terry, who was trying to tell us that Elvis was depressed and just wanted to end it all. I don't agree. I don't agree. Now, did Elvis have a very difficult year? Yep. Was he over-medicated? Yep. Did he have serious health problems? Yep. Were there problems in the relationship? Maybe. So I choose to believe Ginger Alden, the positive, optimistic outlook that Elvis had.
that was, I'm actually fortunate. A lot of people were like, oh, you're smiling. And I said, well, that's what usually you do when someone says to take a picture, even though it was my grandfather's funeral. But that was by the graveside. So I'm actually happy that a cousin of mine took this picture so that I have it.
I think this was on the cover of several magazines back then. So you guys...
Guys, I never knew this was a funeral picture. I never knew it. But just think, Elvis let her use the aeroplane, took it her family to make sure they were on time for this funeral, and the treacherous weather conditions, icy, cold, treacherous weather conditions. Amazing.
You may have copies of that. And your father also, after he passed, he's also buried in that general area. Is that correct?
Yes, my father is buried at the same cemetery.
So you people from Arkansas, this is like a third cousin. I mean, she's family. She's coming back home.
We love Arkansas. I call it God's country.
Is it any Razorback fans in here? Oh yeah, I figured.
But yeah, it was always holds a special place in my heart.
We're going to bounce around. I don't like the format of going from chronological order, so we're going to bounce around. We're going to talk about different subjects. Thank you, Mr. Cherry.
Oh, thank you.
Songs. You know, you went out with Elvis starting, I guess, November, December,
Yeah.
all the way through his passing. So I think it's pretty public knowledge. You only missed 4 or 5 shows during that period. So, songs. What are your favorite songs that Elvis performed?
Oh,
Or
wow.
didn't perform and maybe just sang in private?
I loved Unchained Melody. I loved a lot of his
So this is interesting. What was his favourite song? Let's have a listen, guys.
gospel music also. But Unchained Melody was beautiful. There are so many, well, I didn't see him perform Kentucky Rain, but I loved Kentucky Rain.
Ah, Kentucky Rain, such a beautiful song.
Wow, that's a hard, I get asked that sometimes, what's your favorite Elvis song? And it's just hard to pinpoint because there's so many. And no one sang gospel like Elvis. I mean, it's just amazing. It gives you chills.
So true.
But yeah, just trying to pinpoint a, you
Well,
know.
usually for you, you didn't get to see Can't Help Falling in Love that much because they would usher you.
Right,
But
right.
didn't he tell you one time he wanted you to stay till the end?
That was in the very beginning. I believe it was the very first tour. I don't know, it could have been in San Francisco. This was in November of 1976. And I was told to sit, there was a chair for me off to the side behind the sound man. And Elvis, well, first I was told when I Can't Help Falling in Love with You, that was the closing song for him, when that starts to play, for me to leave and get in a limousine because he's out of there, you know. You know, you hear the Elvis has left the building. He left the building. So,
He didn't do encores.
no. So I was a little nervous about it, and I was sitting there, and I was watching. So I left, and this was in probably the very first show I saw. And when we got in the car, he turned to me and he said, "Oh, did you see the ending?" And I said, "Well, no." And he wasn't too happy, so he looks at the guys in the car and he says, "You know, next time," because I didn't know if I was going to be sent home, if we were going to date or what. And he said, "Next time, make sure she stays for the end of the show." And sure enough, it's kind of funny because I forgot about it and I stood up and I heard a voice say, "Stay." And I looked and he was kind of pointing at me. But the whole reason was, you know, if anyone was fortunate to see Elvis perform in person, he always did these amazing karate moves a lot. And that's what he wanted me to see. And he went into this whole thing, you know, he'd go into that low stretch, which pulled his hamstring a lot of times, and he had pain from that. But that was quite something, and I knew that's what that was all about. So sure enough, I got to see the ending of that in the beginning.
You mentioned after the show you get in that limo. A lot of times he would go straight to the airport, would he not? Or would y'all normally go back to the hotel? What was the...
I guess it depended, you know. But a lot of times he'd stay in the jumpsuit, you know, and then change on the airplane. But it seemed most of the time we were getting back on the airplane a lot and going to the next place.
Was the conversation mostly about the show? Like, how did everybody like...
He would usually when he settled into a hotel room, he would sit for a long time and bring people in because he cared so greatly about his performances. And
So guys, in case you just joined us, I thought I'd come on there. I wanted to do a bit of a Ginger Alden live on the Keto channel, Elvis Presley fan on keto. Obviously, I am an Elvis fan on keto. Keto is a diet that fixes your health and can rejuvenate you and give you lots of energy. So look it up, guys. Keto, yeah?
he would talk about what went wrong or what didn't, and he had such a keen ear for if someone hit a wrong note or anything, you know, he would stop the show and start over again and apologize a little bit, and because he wanted to please everybody so badly. But yeah, many nights he'd stay up and talk about things, and then read a lot of books. He was into just certainly a lot of reading.
You mentioned, well, we talked about December of '76 in Vegas, and Elvis was a generous soul when it came to giving gifts, was he not?
Oh, absolutely.
And we've talked in private about this a lot. He bestowed a lot of jewelry on you during that Christmas month, did he not? And you kind of told him you weren't big into jewelry. What was his response?
Well, this was when I first went to Las Vegas. Elvis asked me, and I was with him.
Now, people bring up this whole Elvis giving people jewelry. They try and sort of, you know, we get some positive and negative comments about Ginger Alden. Not everyone likes Ginger. I do. I think she's great. People talk about spending and the amount of gifts that Elvis would buy Ginger. But the truth is, everybody that Elvis was with was given loads of gifts. Everybody. So you couldn't say no to Elvis. If Elvis was going to give you a car, you were getting a car. If he was going to buy you a fur coat, you were getting a fur coat. If anything, I would say Elvis would be insulted if you said no. And don't forget, Elvis loved the feeling it gave him when he was generous, when he gave things. It made him feel good. Elvis didn't hoard his money. He wanted to share it.
For his very last, unfortunately, we were there, 10 days? I believe it was from December 2nd to December 12th, 1976. And it was his last Las Vegas performance. And I was sitting in his suite with him at the top of the Las Vegas Hilton. And I remember I think Joe Esposito's road manager was there, and he was saying something to Joe, and Joe would leave and come back and all this, and Elvis would leave the room. And I remember all of a sudden Elvis calls. I left the room once, came back in, and then Elvis tells me to close my eyes and hold out my hand. So I did, and this beautiful ring, like diamond cluster ring, was put on my finger. And then he's like, okay, hold out your other hand. He kept doing this, and I got 4 rings that night. And everyone knows Elvis with jewelry, and I was so...
Could you imagine that? Just too generous. In case you don't know, Ginger Alden is doing a tour in England, I think around Liverpool area. I think she's doing about 4 shows in a week between the June the 1st, June the 8th. So, she just seems lovely.
Blown away by it. And I wasn't really a jewelry person at the time. I didn't wear a lot of jewelry. And I remember saying to him, I said, Elvis, I appreciate this. This is a lot, too much. And I said, I'm not a jewelry person. And he just looks at me and he goes, you'll learn to like it.
Well, I see you're sporting a piece right there tonight.
I am.
Well, tell us about that.
Wow. One night, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the TCB logos from Elvis, taking care of business, and a lot of the females around him had these gold necklaces made, tender love and care. And so I believe it was after Christmas, and I was at Graceland one night. And Elvis liked to do this with he loved to present things. And he had a box opened up with this necklace on it, and he would take the bedside lamp and shine it on it. And I came in the room and I saw this, and I was just blown away because it was a little while into the relationship, but this was special made.
So he kind of put it on display.
He did.
I think I heard Elvis, he liked to give gifts, but the biggest kick he got out of was seeing what your reaction would be.
Oh, yeah. And he wasn't happy if he...
Well, it's all right, guys. Suddenly stopped. Let's see if we can make that work again. Let me just make sure you guys are there. Why is that just suddenly blah blah blah? Hang on a minute, guys. Are you still getting me? Because that just suddenly stopped. I have no idea why.
When he was younger, and it just brought him a great deal of joy to be able to do that. I remember he told me once. He said people love to see beautiful things when they wake up in the morning. They like to see that, and that because he didn't have it, and he was so gracious to people, so generous to so many,
So a funny story is Ginger, we had a conversation a couple months ago, and she said, I was going through some of my stuff because we're going over to England, and we're going to take a few items over, and she goes, I got these 2 checks, and they're in this old photo album. The old photo albums had the glue, and we all hate them now because we can't get our family photos out. You try to get the heat, but you don't want to melt any. Well, he wrote her 2 checks, and she stuck them in the photo album, right? And that's great, but tell them about the checks. This is hilarious. This is Elvis Presley, and then you can follow that up with the McDonald's stuff, but this is funny stuff. He wrote you 2 checks, you still have them.
Yeah.
And tell them the amounts.
Well, one I think that's for Christmas. It was for 25 cents. Then he got a kick out of it, so that was just something you want to do
worth
with
a
them.
lot of money because you do that, but it was worth 25 cents.
Maybe 26. No. And then there was another one for 10 cents personal. And I always look back in things. This is going way back. My father, this is a whole other story about the Army and all this. When Elvis, my father was in public relations and recruiting for the Army. And back, what was it, 1958, when Elvis, the word was getting out of the draft board that Elvis
They are sent so about your comment.
would be drafted, so a lot of the different branches of the military were going to try to get him to join. And my father went down to Graceland once to, my father was in the Army, and to try to get Elvis to join, possibly think about joining the Army. And Elvis wasn't home. He was told, Elvis wasn't home, but before my father could go back, Elvis got drafted into the Army. So Elvis was in the Army 2 years. When he came back, let's back up here. My father, when Elvis was enlisted or drafted, my father was at the Kennedy Veterans Hospital, and the new recruits were brought in, and so there are some pictures of Elvis, that were put in the paper, and Elvis shaking my father's hand, and that was a really cool thing. But that particular day, my father told us later that Elvis wanted to make a phone call, and he didn't have change. And so he asked my father if he had any change. My father gave him a dime. And so I always relate in a strange way that it was just a joke that this check that Elvis wrote me was a dime. I said, it's payback. In a strange, weird way, but that little check.
I want to go back to a comment you made earlier today about the necklace, because I asked her a little bit more in depth about, her receiving it, and she made the comment that, when I got this necklace, I thought, hey, finally I'm part of the group. And, as history prevails, there's a lot of different cast of characters in that group, and vicious. I mean, when we first met 5 or 6 years ago, I said, this Elvis world, it's spliced up and it's fractionalized, and it wasn't really what you expected. But there's a reason why you really didn't get to know a lot of the entourage because of Elvis's choosing. Kind of walk us through that day to day with you and Elvis, and a lot of times Rosemary was a part, of going into the private quarters and you guys kind of closing those doors where maybe in the past, previous relationships or with other people in the entourage or even family members, he was more engaging. But when you kind of came on the scene, he apparently switched some of his gears a little bit and spent a lot of that time with you and even Rosemary when you guys were out on the road.
Rosemary's my eldest sister.
So you, in my opinion as a fan, I think you kind of got a bad rap, from some of the people that were there because...
So I'm interested in this because obviously, I do think Ginger Alden gets a bit picked on. I do. It does seem like the Memphis Mafia didn't accept her and that they preferred Linda Thompson because she was one of the guys, wasn't she? She got on very well. The other thing I've been told is that Ginger would tell Elvis what was going on behind his back with the Memphis Mafia, with the Stanleys, maybe even with the Smiths, because I've seen an interview where Billy Smith clearly does not like Ginger. So let's keep listening.
They were accustomed to certain interactions with people in Elvis's life, and that necessarily did not happen with you. You want to expound
It was hard. Some people, were basically, I didn't get to know a lot of the people. I mean, Elvis kept me very sheltered upstairs with him a lot, and so it was difficult I wasn't able, and maybe within the time frame, I was so focused on Elvis. And that it just wasn't easy. I wasn't hanging out downstairs, and he didn't want that. And I could tell there was.
But also, why would he want that? Why would he want his girlfriend downstairs with the boys? I mean, come on, men when they're in groups, then they can be pretty crude. Obviously, drinking, drugs were involved, partying, other women. So I get it. I get Elvis wanting to keep Ginger Alden upstairs.
Some changes coming, but I think our relationship, it scared some people. Some people thought, well, this isn't going to last. They were used to certain things, and when it was just, unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of time to know people well, and there were some a lot of stories started that just weren't true, and things misunderstood that.
And I get this all the time. You know, a lot of stories started that just weren't true. The amount of different things I hear about Ginger Alden is unbelievable. You know, we did this topic the other day, and the comments I receive about Ginger Alden, there's a lot of hate for Ginger, but there's also a lot of love for Ginger. There's a lot of upset for Ginger concerning her mother with a lawsuit, trying to get money from EPE, or from Gracelands, whatever it is, or from Vernon, yeah. So, you know, this Ginger Alden, she gets a hard time. She gets a hard time. She's got a lovely Facebook page. She always answers her comments, yeah. She does seem very genuine. I will say that she did, you know, they all cash in to a certain degree, don't they? Initially, after Elvis died, she made a few decisions. There was a movie, there was some interviews. In some of those interviews, she does share some graphic details. There are things said in some of these early interviews from Ginger Alden that are a little bit questionable. But then she does seem to go quiet for many years. She gets married. She has a small family. And then I think around 2014, she brings out this book. I think, let me just double check. And she does speak very well of Elvis. There isn't, 2014. There isn't loads of trash in that book. There's a few bits, but nothing like Linda's book. I mean, Linda's book is a nice book, but there are some pretty nasty things, some pretty horrible things in this book about Elvis in Linda's book. I don't think Ginger was so bad. I think Ginger was very kind in her book concerning Elvis. And she does, you know, she comes across very honourable, very distinguished and just respectful. That's how I see her.
So that's why I waited a long time, but I finally wrote a book because I thought I had to try to clear up and let people see what was actually happening, because a lot of people never knew, you know.
Right. In an interview I recently saw with Larry Geller, who, if you don't know, he did hairstyling and some of the spiritual stuff with Elvis. He even alluded to, without even mentioning you, in that last year of his life, Elvis was definitely making changes in his life. And, you know, I see that.
I could tell by things he said to me, you know, different events that had happened and little things. Or sometimes he'd get mad and I'm going to fire this person, and I'm going to do this. And I think some things were different for people, and maybe I think a single Elvis, I think people were afraid of their world changing a lot, you know, and they liked things kind of the way they were. And so I think it was a little scary when I met Elvis and what was happening between us and what they were kind of seeing. And, you know,
I don't think they challenged him too much, maybe through the history, but you actually alluded to certain incidences in your book where you did push back and you did ask questions, and I don't think you've ever really gotten a fair platform on why you did that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
So this is interesting, guys. This is part of why I think she's had some backlash from friends and family of Elvis.
You can talk a little bit about, you know, why you did push back, why you did challenge him to do better.
For those of you who have read my book, there were some events that happened, and I had to write about those, because Elvis, I always said 98% of the time he was a wonderful person, and then this darkness would come in because of what I remember with the medication usage, and it would cause some mood swings. And I thought, when you're trying to help someone, so I went through some events with him, and he wasn't used to being told maybe not to do this or don't do, you know, and I kind of suffered for that later from some others, because things were misunderstood. People just thought, you know, one of the biggest things that some people started lying about was that Ginger Alden hated touring, or she didn't want to do this, or she asked him to have her parent. None of that's true at all. I mean, I loved watching Elvis perform, you know. I wouldn't have been at every single show, and just, I mean, I loved music. I grew up, my mom was musical, my sister played piano, and so someone started that along the way, and I didn't do a lot of, take part in a lot of books early on. And so you kind of have to go back to the original people that started some of those stories, and I know who the majority of them are. And then a biographer will come along and pick up that story because I didn't talk to the biographers, And so, and then they run with it, so the story stays the same. And, when Elvis passed away, I went on with my life, and I was proud of that. I worked, I had a son, and when my son went off to college, because of so much out there, and I wasn't aware of a lot of stuff that was said. I knew a few things. But I thought, I've got to do this for history's sake, because it was unfair to Elvis, it was unfair to me. So it took 38 years, but I had written down a lot of stuff shortly after Elvis. Some things you don't forget, but I wanted to hold on to all that, so I'd written down a lot of things. And I'm so thankful that I was able to get that out.
Well, one of the things that we've discussed is.
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there on this because we're going to do a part 2 of this over on the Elvis Presley Long Lost Footage channel. But before I do that, I want to play some old clips of Ginger Alden. So this is a very long interview, so we're going to have to do this in probably 3 parts. So thanks to everyone for joining us. So let's have a look here. Let's face Ginger seems nice overall, but of course she's out to make money out of her relationship after 8 months relationship. Let's have a look. Ginger may end up being the last of Elvis's girlfriends standing, so her value to EPE at events will be great. I mean, she'd be great at Elvis Week. I'm sure I read something yesterday that Linda Thompson's at Elvis Week, isn't she? She's going to be there. Did I read that right, guys? I don't believe Ginger's goal was to make money when she published. She was celebrating her life. Oh, I don't agree with that. Matt, no offense, mate. They all want money. They love the money. Come on, let's get real. Let's get real. She likes the money. She's doing this for money. She's not doing this for love. Yeah? Right. And it's not just money. They get attention. They get notoriety. They get a bit of fame. They feel like a celebrity. They get treated like they're very important. Yeah. So they get mollycoddled wherever they go. So I'm definitely not going to agree with you. So let me just get let's just pay a couple of I want to just play some old
Many times in great detail.
So we can break it up a bit, and we can just look at Ginger in around 1977, 78, 79, and just see her looking beautiful. So we're just going to click on anything and see what comes up.
Reflections of the man that changed all of our lives. We'll be talking to some of Elvis's best friends, relatives, and former associates.
Yeah, so Matt, you believe Ginger is genuine. I think when you see a few old clips, I'm not trying to slate Ginger. I'm saying that when fame is involved, when money's involved, when you have big like news companies, magazines, tabloids, especially in the late 70s, early 80s, offering you large amounts of money, you do things for money. So I've seen quite a few things that Ginger did in the early years, just after Elvis died, that were obviously for money. Even the movie she made, which is not very good, by the way, that's on YouTube, it was clearly for money, of course. But I also say this is a lovely book as well. But it was for money as well. This book was made for money. So come on, guys, let's get real.
You'll see people like his fiancée, Ginger Alden.
So many things, I guess, have been said, and which is so true about Elvis's generosity and his religiousness. That I'm happy to see more of it brought out instead of a lot of the bad things, and because that's what I remember Elvis for, was all of the happiness that he brought to people.
I'd like to say hello to my girlfriend Ginger. Ginger, stand up, honey.
I mean, even Elvis doing this, it does show that he did like Ginger, guys. I know many people try and belittle the relationship. He liked her. They got engaged. He must have liked her enough to get engaged to her. Come on. They were engaged, guys.
Sit down, Ginger. It's enough for her.
After Elvis died, were you told what he had died from?
Well, all of us had heard at the same time that it was a heart attack.
Do you believe in your own mind right now that alone caused his death?
Yeah, so there were. Vincenzo's read one of them. Vincenzo says, Ginger Alden gave an interview to the National Enquirer when Elvis died. I didn't like that, Louis. That's the one with Elvis's body on the cover. Yeah, I seen it. Ginger did do things for money, guys. Let's not paint Ginger as some angel, yeah? But I do think Ginger was one of the more genuine people that Elvis was with. I will say that. She didn't trash Elvis in the way that many of the others did. I'll give her that.
Right. In the very beginning, I did. I just, I think it was Elvis's time to go. So I think he took him. But then again, in my mind, there are a lot of unanswered questions.
Why didn't you stop him?
I tried on different occasions to stop Elvis when I saw him take something that I thought he shouldn't be taking or taking too much of something.
So don't forget, people have strong opinions about Ginger on her going to sleep that night. Many feel that she should have woke up, prevented his death. There's strong emotions with the fans. That we've all heard the story that supposedly she saw Elvis's death. She saw Elvis lying on the floor and went and had a shower. Now, I've seen another version where when they were trying to revive Elvis, and the ambulance crew were trying to sort things out, and where he was rushed to hospital and stuff, that it was then that she went and freshened up and sorted herself out. So it's not a straightforward story, guys.
And on the different times, he would say, I don't understand. But he would say, I need it. Which I don't understand. And when I first started dating Elvis, I just turned 20 at the time. And no one ever told me anything about what to expect, how the group was, or anything like that. I had to learn everything on my own. And the people that had been around Elvis for all these years, when I saw Elvis take something, which was mainly before he would go to sleep, I thought to myself, well, it must not really be harmful if it's prescribed. And if these people over the years, if Elvis is still doing it, then it must not really be very harmful for him.
Do you know what? That is very believable. Yeah, she hadn't known Elvis really that long. He said he definitely had a problem with insomnia. He was ill, unwell, in pain, so he's taken different prescribed medications from his doctor. Why would she think any different? Yeah. And the truth is, a lot of the medication that Elvis took was because he was unwell, was because he couldn't sleep, was because he was in pain. So I get it, guys. I get it. Let's just click on a few things and see what comes up. There's a little clip here, I think. So he doesn't look that big. His face is a bit puffy. His tummy's a bit puffy. A man in his early 40s, pretty normal. His arms and his legs, his body looks very slim. So I agree. So Hillbilly Cat says that she was actively being trashed by Priscilla. I don't know if I've ever heard Priscilla trash Ginger. Has she? I don't know. I definitely have heard a few things that Linda said. I've made videos of Billy Smith trashing Ginger. Billy clearly didn't like Ginger. I think Marty Lacker as well didn't like Ginger. I'm not so sure about Priscilla. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Now, the general feeling I get from Priscilla is that she didn't like any of the girlfriends to be spoken about. If you look at all the work that Priscilla has done over the decades, she never wants the ex-girlfriends brought up. Just like she never brings up her ex-boyfriends. Priscilla never brings up her ex-boyfriends. So let's just check your comments, guys. Geraldo did a big special on Fox News on Elvis' 40th anniversary on the passing in 2007. That could be reviewed. Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to do that. It's Elvis's family and his inner circle that said Elvis was fat. Well, you know, some of the video footage of Elvis in his last few gigs, concerts, call it what you want, the way they're filmed make him look big. They're filmed very close up. You see him looking sweaty and puffy, and they just make him look big. But when you really give those old footage clips a proper look, he's not as big as people think. He's not as big as people think. So, always a lot to say about it, though, isn't there? Let's have a look. Let's see what we can find here, guys. Let's listen to this one.
Elvis had a jeweler, Lowell Hayes, take the diamond from that ring and put to this.
And what was the scene as he gave you the ring?
I remember we were in his lounge area. We were in his bathroom. And I had no idea about the ring. And Elvis walked in. He took my hand. We both walked into the bathroom. And I sat down in a black leather chair. And he said just some beautiful, beautiful things. And then he said, I'm asking you, will you marry me? And he was on his knees, old-fashioned. So it was a very beautiful moment for me.
So don't forget, there's a lot of people that don't even think this happened. There's a lot of people that don't think they were engaged. Obviously, we've seen the ring in its green velvet box. There's many pictures of the ring. Some people just think this didn't happen. There is evidence that it happened. So I think they were engaged, guys. I'm pretty sure they were engaged. Now, would they have got married at Christmas? Who knows?
Absolutely. And that's not TCB that you're wearing around your neck. That's TLC.
TLC.
And that's what that
stands for tender love and care. My personal feelings, I think there were a lot of people around Elvis that should never have been around him. And I don't think they really enjoyed working for Elvis, because I think when they were asked to do things, I know for myself, asking them to do things, they would roll their eyes like, oh gee, I have to do this again, or like go have someone to make his food or something like that. And I think so many of the people that were around Elvis kept him away from reality quite a bit by always saying, okay, you can have your way here, and always being afraid to say no to him. And I think he lived a little out of touch of reality. One of the things that...
And maybe there is a bit of truth to that. You know, I mean, he was weighted on hand and foot. I mean, I will say this, she's beautiful, isn't she? Stunning. This lady is stunning.
He said to me, that always stayed in my mind was, he said, I'm not that street out there. If you cut me, I bleed. Because the street was named Elvis Presley Boulevard. And I think he wanted people to look at him. I don't think Elvis could quite comprehend what he had done and who he was. And I think he wanted people to be able to just sit and talk to him. Yet he liked to control the conversation a lot of times. And all of that attention all those years, there's no way, I don't think anyone else could have controlled the attention. But I just really think that he always kind of wanted that attention on himself. I just think Elvis had a very special aura or mystical attraction about him that is really hard to explain.
I like that. He had his own special aura, a mystical attraction. I know the music's making it hard to hear, but let's keep going.
was it religious? Or?
I think so. I personally feel, I think Elvis was, I think God chose Elvis as a very special person and gave him a beautiful voice in which to make people happy, and that's what he did.
I like that. God chose Elvis as a very special person and gave him a beautiful voice.
I wanted everything to be so right when we did get married. I wanted to sort things out ahead of time, and sometimes our small disagreements were blown up. One person would hear it and they would blow it up as, gee, she's upset, and she said no to him. I think I was one of the few that did say no, and Elvis was so used to all of these years being...
So Vincenzo, you say Billy Stanley was strung out and fell asleep obviously on the night Elvis died. Yeah, is that true? I haven't heard that. I heard it was Ricky on a pool table, not Billy. I've never heard it was Billy. Is that true?
I think so many people were afraid to lose their job by saying no to him. you know, like when Elvis was watching a TV program, and most of the things Elvis said were funny and you would laugh, but sometimes he would mention something and it wasn't really funny, and when he laughed, the whole room laughed, and then when he quit, everyone quit. And I just thought that was kind of sad.
What were the last words that you exchanged, in fact?
As best I recall, I remember I told Elvis, well, don't fall asleep, when he went into the bathroom, and he said, I won't.
And he did fall asleep, of course.
I didn't see Elvis for...
Okay, so the second half of this interview is Linda, but we're saving Linda for a different show. Let's go back, see if we can find another clip. Let's have a look. So there's one. There's one bit here. Let me see if I can find it, where Ginger says that she's not happy about the way that Elvis is portrayed. Let's read this. Let's see if this is it. This could be it.
I wrote down all of my memories shortly after Elvis passed away. It was just my way of holding on. You know, I wanted to hold on and not forget. And time went on. I went forward with my life. I worked. I got married, had my son. And in the course of all this, a lot of untruths were being said regarding mine and Elvis's relationship, a lot of exaggerations. And
what were some of the untruths?
So this is important here. And do you know what? Ginger gets slated for this, yeah? Because she's upbeat and positive. She doesn't talk about Elvis like he was a strung out fat druggie, yeah? That she says that actually Elvis was looking forward to the future, was actually quite happy sometimes, and was enjoying life. She gets a bit of a backlash. Even last night on our live stream, someone called Terry joined us and dismissed all of this and was calling Ginger a liar and said all of the nice things that are in this book about Elvis were not true. This is what Terry was saying, an Elvis fan. He was determined to trash Elvis in the last year of his life, and just portray him as just the fat druggie that was spending all his money. Whereas Ginger comes along as a breath of fresh air and speaks very well of Elvis, has a completely different take on Elvis and his attitude to life. So let's listen to her.
Truths.
well, just that Elvis was unhappy, or we argued a lot, things like that, which was not true. And so I wanted to set the record straight, and I waited until my son, who just turned 20 this past August 20th, went off to college. And I sat down, and it took me about 2 years, and I put together all of my memoirs, and finally I had my book.
There's a perception that has lingered for many years that when, just before Elvis died, that he was unhappy, that he was this big guy who was just not the old Elvis that we all knew, that he had maybe even lost his will to live.
Right up until the day he died. I mean,
I keep hearing it, guys. I keep hearing it. You know, Elvis was suicidal. I hear it but from the Stanleys. I hear different people saying that Elvis has had enough. It was his time to go. And guys, I just don't like to hear it. I prefer Ginger Alden's version of things.
I mean, there are just things that I've seen in books, and I said this wasn't what I witnessed. This wasn't the person I loved. This wasn't how he was those last, 9 months, and I was with him 98% of the time. He had asked me to move into Graceland, but I never did, and he said, I respect you for that. I just didn't at the time. It wasn't my way. And but I was up there pretty much every day. And I just think the portrayal, the image of him, has been really unfair. And
I agree with that. I agree. I think the image of Elvis towards the end of his life has been very unfair. I think the fact that his own friends and family and some ex-girlfriends have just made him look terrible has been very unfair. The press, the tabloids, the magazines, the documentaries, the movies, they've all been very unfair to Elvis. They tend to talk about Elvis as if the way Elvis was in the last 2 years of his life is how he was in general. It's just not true. It's just not true. Elvis, even in the 70s, looked amazing. You look at Elvis in 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, he looks great. He looks great. So, yes, we all accept that towards the end of his life, he was becoming even more unwell, even more sick. Yes, there was abuse with the prescription medication. We accept that. We know that. But I prefer the way Ginger talks about Elvis.
And you know, Elvis was not someone sitting up and gorging on. He could be compulsive sometimes when eating certain foods, but this image, I never once saw him eat a fried peanut butter, the famous fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches. I never once saw that.
And that's brilliant, because how many people just say all Elvis did was eat those sandwiches and binge on burgers? It's ridiculous, guys.
So I guess your biggest concern has been that a lot of what has happened over the past 40 years is that he's been defined by those final months of his life.
See, he's just saying what I'm saying. That Elvis has been defined by the final months of his life. It's so unfair. So unfair.
And you're saying that what people perceived was his life really was not the reality.
He was never bored. He didn't act down. We laughed. We watched television. He played the organ in his room. Sometimes we went out. We rode three-wheels. He had these great fun three-wheelers. We went motorcycle riding.
You still miss him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. You know, I miss that we didn't get to see where he was going to go and you know, hear more of his music, and you know, he had a lot left to do.
Tough question. He puts her on the spot, doesn't he? Right, guys, what we're going to do, we're going to come back on Elvis Presley long lost footage, and we're going to do part 2 of what we're doing here of Ginger Alden. So I'll see you on Elvis Presley long lost footage in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay, guys? Elvis Presley long lost footage in 2 minutes. Thanks, guys.